Hello everybody, welcome to County Seat Today. I'm your host Chad Booth. Every now and then we get somebody that's got so much information packed into their head that we need to take an entire half hour to talk to them. Today is one of those shows, but this is one you are going to want to stay through all the way because they're things that touch your life, whether it's oil and gas for your home, the water that comes out of your tap, the forest you hike in, the wood you buy. They all touch the Division of Natural Resources, and today we're talking to the director, Mike Styler, who took enough time out of his busy schedule to join us. Mike, thank you.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
All right, let's get into it. Great. You got seven divisions within your department.
Yes.
What are they?
Okay.
I'll count them.
Okay. Water rights.
Yep.
That's the state engineer, and he oversees all the water rights in the state. Then the Division of Water Resources. They coordinate water rights on the Colorado River. They help build projects. Mm-hmm. There's the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining. They permit oil and gas drilling. They also permit coal mining, and they take care of abandoned mines. Mm-hmm. How many is that? 3? We've got the Division of, I said oil, gas, and mining. We've got Utah Geological Survey. Okay. They watch out and report on geological hazards. They do underground work looking for faults. They also do studies on underground water, mm-hmm. and they are involved in energy and wind power as well. They also have the state paleontologist. As a side note, I probably won't talk much about Geological Survey, but our state paleontologist has probably found more new species of dinosaurs than anyone in the country.
Yeah, we just had somebody on the show not too long ago.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, they do a great job. We have Wildlife Resources. That's our biggest division. Uh-huh. Our next biggest division is State Parks.
Correct.
We have Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, and they're the guys that put out all the fires.
There we go. We covered all 7 of them. All right. So let's take a few minutes and kind of delve into each of the departments, because there are things that are on everybody's mind, and the questions all tie back to divisions within your Department of Natural Resources. So I'm going to start with something that is close to home. I've been getting at my office, because I own my office property, and I've been getting at my house a bunch of summons and notices, and your name is on them in the corner of the page, and I keep thinking, am I in trouble over water rights? Is there something I'm supposed to claim? So what's going on with all of this court cases in water?
Yes. What you're talking about is an adjudication process, which is a process of the courts. And the state engineer is told by the courts to do an adjudication, a research of all the water rights within an area. They're doing an area right now which is the Jordan River, Salt Lake Valley area. There are over 30,000 water rights, and what they do, they send notices to every titled property owner and say, do you have a water right? If you do, let us know. And it's not an effort it's not a gotcha thing. They just want to know, do you have a water right? We have a list of water rights. Is our list up to date? Is it correct? And if so, we need verification from the property owner.
So in response to that, okay, I have a couple of shares in the canal company, but I think the canal company's handling that.
Yes, they would be.
And then I sign up for city water, but that's not a water right, that's a water use.
That's right.
So who are the people that need to take this seriously and respond?
Well, everyone needs to take it seriously, but if you don't have a diversion on your property out of a stream, if you don't have an old well that you take water out of, you probably don't have a water right. You probably get water from your city, or you may own shares in an irrigation company. But that's what we want to know. If you do have a well, if you use it for supplemental irrigation on a big yard, come and tell us. We probably have record of it. We want to make sure that we have verification. Then when we compile all of these water rights, we take it to the judge and say, these are the water rights that we're aware of, and you need to validate those. If you happen to have a water right and you don't come tell us, The judge may validate the list and leave yours off.
Okay.
So we don't want your water right left off the list if you happen to have a valid water right.
Okay, so while we're on the subject of water, water rights for no water doesn't really help much. We've been in a really serious drought. You wouldn't know it by last week. So what's going on in the water picture?
Well, in the last week, our prayers have been answered. We've been hoping for a long, mild, soft storm, and that's what this pattern has been. But our water year, which ended October 1st, I read in the paper this morning, was the driest year on record. And I believe that. It was just a horrible winter. There was some storm in the north, but basically nothing in the south. I have a farm down in Delta, Utah, and our reservoir started off the year at about 38% full. It ended up a couple of weeks ago 4% full. We are just down to the bottom, and many reservoirs in the southern end of the state are in the same situation.
So do you draw DMAD or Gunnison
Yes.
Bend?
Gunnison, well, from Yuba.
Oh,
Yuba is our big
Yuba.
reservoir.
Oh, okay.
Yuba, and then it goes down to Gunnison Bend and DMAD. Those are all in a series, but Yuba is our big reservoir.
Wow, 4%.
Yes.
And not much water skiing going on there right now.
No, it's pretty sad, but these storms look very promising, and hopefully the weather pattern will change this winter.
So is it water resources that tries to make the most out of drought versus times of plenty?
Yeah, water resources do the Slow the Flow program. They encourage water conservation. They're the folks that lend money to irrigation companies that want to line their canals and get what water they have to the end of the row, to the end of the ditch.
Wow, I paid for all the lining in my ditch by myself. I didn't even know that was there.
Come and make application. They make low interest loans. They also help in paying for dam repair. We do dam safety, and we inspect all the dams in the state. We don't want another Oroville.
Yes, I was just going to say.
And so we put literally millions of dollars a year into refurbishing dams.
Great. We're going to take a quick break here. We'll be right back with the county seat. Our conversation with Mike Styler. Are you taking notes? This is a lot of good information. We'll see you in just a second.
The Utah Farm Bureau began as a collection of farmers supporting each other to raise the food we enjoy. Today, Farm Bureau membership encompasses everyone, whether ranchers, growers, or just everyday folks like you and me. Members enjoy discounts on items like vehicles and ATVs, or insurance that's very affordable. You don't have to be a farmer to join, and dues are small, but together we make a big difference in keeping our food supply local and abundant. Join Utah Farm Bureau.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
Utah has a national treasure where winding canyons stretch to the horizon, where nature forms elegant structures, and where iconic monuments of the West stand tall. Visitors around the world come to get a glimpse of southern Utah's legendary landscape and landmarks. Join them and explore San Juan County, Utah's Canyon Country.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Welcome back to the county seat. We're talking to Mike Styler, who is the head of the Department of Natural Resources for the state of Utah. We've covered water, we've covered, and now let's turn to the other side, fire, because the two of them don't mix. Been a really, really rugged fire season. And people think the forest is the forest, but most of these have been federal forest fires, but they have involved some state lands. How is the state on their forests managing, and how are you trying to keep ahead of these fires so we don't have them? There have been a whole bunch of complaints from a lot of county leaders about not enough roads because of the roadless initiative, and we got too much dead wood. How does the state manage their forests?
Well, unfortunately, the state doesn't have any forests. We would like to have a state forest, but what we do, we help communities manage when they are in the urban interface with the forest. We go in and do a lot of work to fireproof communities and homes, and then we have a couple of hotshot teams that when there are fires, we're called out. Often our teams, they're nomadic. They'll start in the south where the fires might start, and they'll follow the fires from state to state, then get to Utah about the time fires break out here, and then end up the season maybe in California or Montana. And we have some really great and dedicated firefighters. But we work with the Forest Service on prescribed burns. We counsel with them. When they want to do a prescribed burn, we're brought in and we're part of the team. And sometimes there are differences of opinion. This year we had a very unusual year when some prescribed fires got away. We had some managed burns that were on Forest Service property where the Forest Service said, you know, this fire is doing a lot of good, let's let it burn. And then a red flag situation came up, and the red flag situation allowed for the fire to get away. It may be of interest to know, on both a prescribed fire or a managed burn, if the Forest Service has made the call that we want to let the fire go, then if it happens to get away, all the costs of putting that fire are Forest Service costs. Now there are secondary costs, like if it messes up a community's watershed, if it impacts their water, of course the community has that cost.
Right.
The cost of air quality, you know, everyone puts up with that. But we've had a pretty good relationship with the Forest Service, and in most cases they've listened to us. If we say, you know, the time has come to put out that fire, they do. And there were even several prescribed fires they were looking at in northern Utah at the end of the fire season, and we said, please don't do those. The fuel moisture is so low, we wish you wouldn't, and they listened to us and they did not do those prescribed fires.
Excellent. Now you got a reclamation problem on your hands.
Yes.
Is that something the state has to be involved in?
Absolutely, and we partner with the BLM and Forest Service in reseeding those areas. I met with the governor's office yesterday morning and gave them what we believe our share of fighting the fire bill is, and the number I shared with Kristen Cox and the Lieutenant Governor was $19.6 million. But of that 19.6, 6.2 million is going to go for seed, and we are geared up and ready to start getting seed on just as fast as we can. And in fact, we like to put seed on snow. So in some of these areas, we'll be flying in seed right on top of the snow.
That works?
Yes, it works very well. There are other areas out in Box Elder County where it's more of a low altitude area where we really need to drag a chain across the seed, and we'll be doing that in those lower BLM areas, but in the higher areas it works great to put the seed right on the snow.
Okay, while we're on the subject of reclamation, let's move on to oil, gas, and mines.
Yes.
Okay, they are kind of in competition with BLM on the permitting side.
Yes.
Is state land, there's always that comparison.
Yes.
Why can we get a drilling permit on state lands in 60 days and it takes 5 years with the BLM? But on the reclamation side, you're across the board.
Yes.
Explain that.
Well, we have an agreement with the coal mining interests and with the Bureau of Mines that we have primacy over permitting coal mines. Mm-hmm. And so when a coal mine shuts down, we will do the reclamation. Of course, the mines will sign a bond. They'll end up paying for the cost of it, but we contract and help do all of the reclamation after a big mining, coal mining project or a hard rock mining effort. We'll go out and if needs be, call on the bond and reclaim that. I've been out on the West Desert and seen areas that were reseeded and the seed didn't take, so we asked the mine company reseed again, and finally after 2 or 3 times it looks really good where the reseeding has been done.
Well, even Alton coal mine, they've had some areas that they're finished with that they have reclaimed.
Yes.
Have you been back on some of that reclaimed land?
In fact, the Alton coal mine is right in the middle of a sagegrass area, and I'm confident that with the reclamation that's been done there, the sagegrass will move right behind the scar of the mine and pick up right where they left off, and it will be a better sagegrass habitat because of the reclamation.
Well, isn't it really true that reclamation always works a little bit better?
Well, it does. We're creating sagegrass habitat where there's been intrusions of pinyon and juniper, especially up in Box Elder County. We have Utah State collaring hundreds of sagegrass, and they're monitoring sagegrass that are moving into areas that we have reclaimed and nesting there in places that they were historically, at least in our lifetimes, not sagegrass brood areas.
Excellent. Well, we got to take another quick break here. We'll continue our conversation with Mike Styler from the Department of Natural Resources when we come back on the County Seat.
There are meetings, and then there are gatherings. At the Davis Conference Center, we know the difference. Turn your event into something more than just another business summit. With over 70,000 square feet of flexible meeting space, state-of-the-art presentation amenities, and inspiring architecture, the Davis Conference Center is designed to deliver stellar results in a majestic setting. Take your convention to the next level. Schedule now at davisconferencecenter.com.
This is what adventure looks like, and here's what it sounds like. Southwest Utah's Iron County offers some of the most iconic trails within the state that include 200 miles of new trails to be discovered. Check out ironcounty.net for info and interactive maps for your complete guide to off-roading. Explore countless miles of trails in the heart of Dixie National Forest, the gateway to Utah National Parks, Iron County.
For 7 years, Utah's Community Voice has been the County Seat, a program that looks beyond politics to spotlight the issues and stories that really matter to you and your community. Now you can help set Utah's agenda for the future by joining the conversation. Become a County Seat sponsor and help support those conversations that are critical to the future of state government. Contact us at 801-947-8888 to make your contribution to help the voice of Utah be heard like never before.
Crisp, colorful, a world in transition. You don't have to travel the back roads of Maine to explore autumn in all of its glory. Beaver County offers fall in unique splendor, with drives along forgotten canyons and hikes through meadows exploding with vibrant hues of red and yellow. Hit the road with your family and discover a side of Beaver County you never knew you were missing. Autumn is fleeting, so don't hesitate. Beaver County, it's time to experience the real Utah.
Mountains to explore. Adventure to be had. A town to fall in love with. Yes, all that in Park City, Utah. Start planning your fall adventure at visitparkcity.com.
Welcome back to the county seat. We're talking with Mike Styler from the Department of Natural Resources. A lot of Division 7 of them under his helm. We've covered a lot of them. We got a few to go in just a few minutes, so let's try and move on. I want to talk about the Geological Survey because they've been playing a big role in the development of thermal energy. What's been going on there?
Well, down in the Milford area, the federal government has been looking for a good geothermal site to do some experimentation on. And so our folks went down there and did a lot of studies. Of course, we've got the Blundell geothermal plant already in existence, but they have this idea, if they go down into the hot rocks, about 8,000 feet down, and utilize the new technology that's been utilized in the oil and gas industry, which is fracking. What if we went down and fracked those hot rocks, and we drill a well, we inject water and let it go through that cracked rock, and then provide another well site for the steam
so you loop it through
to come up. Then you take that water down, it flashes to steam, it comes up the other well, you run your turbines, you condense the water, and then you run it back down, pump it back down, and you just have a closed loop. It's almost like
perpetual motion.
Perpetual motion. This could be earth-shaking in changing the energy outlook.
And we're not just talking about them doing the seismic research to find the rocks, right?
Right. And they've got the right kind of rock down there. And the thing I like about it, it will be a closed system. It won't take a lot of water to create the energy. It'll be a closed loop. There will be some loss, sure, but it won't take near as much water as a coal-fired power plant or a natural gas-fired power plant. It'll be just a returning cycle of heated steam.
How many geothermal areas are there in the state that we could tap for something like that?
Well, the geothermal area down around Milford runs from Milford to Delta.
Oh, that's pretty big.
Yeah, it's a huge area. There are other areas in the state, but this state, our Utah beat out a similar area over in Fallon, Nevada. So we're going to be the recipients of about a $140 million grant that will go through the University of Utah to do research on the geothermal potential in Utah.
Excellent. All right. While we're out in that part of the state, let's touch on Snake Valley water.
That's one of my favorite things. Actually, as a young county commissioner in 1989, I signed protests against Southern Nevada Water filing on the water in Snake Valley because I was afraid it would damage Millard County, where I was a county commissioner. So I've been involved with this since 1989. One of the great things the legislature did, they appropriated over $2 million, which Geological Survey has gone out and drilled a series of 22 wells. They're monitoring wells and springs out in Snake Valley to see what's happening right now with the current usage of water. And I can tell you the water tables are going down, and Southern Nevada water hasn't even entered into the picture. We are already using more water on our ranches and in our homes out in Snake Valley than is available.
How are we going to fix that?
Well, what the locals want to do is get the state engineer to start a water management plan and start limiting the use of water in the Snake Valley.
Okay. Let's take your pick. We can either talk about watershed restoration or we can talk about yurts in the state park because we're running out of time.
Those are my two favorite children.
All right, make it short on both of them, Mike.
Our state parks are doing great. Our visitation is increasing by double digits every year. We're planning on investing $19 million of the money that we've earned at state parks this next year to make them better. People want to bring their motor home, they want water, power, and they want Wi-Fi, and we're going to try and make them all available. Probably my favorite thing that we do in the state is improve watersheds. We have a great set of partners in BLM, Forest Service, sportsmen's groups, and counties. We go out and reseed, replant the landscape into what should be growing there. We want healthy landscapes.
And so we've touched on this for entire half hours, but that makes a significant change in groundwater if you can get all those straws out of the ground.
Absolutely. If we can remove the pinyon and juniper, get an aspen stand growing, the aspen put 30 to 40% more water into the ground than pinyon juniper, which pump water out of the soil 365 days a year, and they kill off all the undergrowth.
Excellent. Okay, you can go back to parks for one more minute.
Okay.
Let's talk about our trail systems for just a second, and we'll finish the show on that. How active are we in trying to make that off-road experience better here in Utah?
As you know, we have folks dedicated to trails in parks, not only to the training for safety training, getting our young people out safely on the trails, teaching them how to use off-road vehicles, but we are maintaining a list of the trails that are there. That's an online list people can get access to know where can I go ride, where is a good safe place, at which level of expertise. And I think you probably have some new information in that area that will help us to encourage people to be out having more experiences more times.
There you go. Thanks for the plug. That will be on At Your Leisure. Just keep watching. You'll see some of it this week. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time.
It's a pleasure.
Appreciate it very much.
Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you for tuning in. Remember, local government is where your life happens. These issues that happen with DNR are probably the closest interface with our counties, and we'll see you next week on the County Seat.